Hello. Hey everyone. Ella and I were just gabbing away over here like two church ladies. You know, we're always having a good time over here. So good to see you guys. It is like I was just telling her that I was like, I need a nap, bro. Like it's perfect. Can I just say this? Yesterday evening, I had the best nap I have had in a long time. Like I had like the nap to end all naps.
Oh
It was
yeah.
perfectly timed. It was perfectly timed to be able to like go to bed right when the storm came. Like
Oh,
right? Like
that's the best.
yeah, like that energy, like having that aesthetic, with the darkness and the thunder and
Hmm.
what it was just in time. So I just I have a tiering system for my naps, and that one was like that was definitely top tier. So I was very very happy to experience that. And today it's similar weather, and I've been working so hard, and I'm very tired, and I feel like I'm gonna I'm gonna need one of those too because the storm is on its way. Well, it's good to see all of you guys. I see you guys in chat. Nikki, welcome. I'm glad you got to catch one of these. It's good to see all the rest of you too. This is going to be a fun one. Ella and I are super excited about doing this particular one because we get to
Yeah.
like, world build geek out over here. Um, I hope everyone's been having a good time in the server. Ella's always like, got stuff going on. Anything we want to share with it? Any announcements or anything you want to tell them before we get started?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. Let me get the link first because I want to be pro, I want to be a professional. So today is the last day that you can jump into this next week's slice game. We will have new slice games every week. But today's the last day you can get into this week's. They run a whole week. They're fun, just like low key role playing games. And then tomorrow, and then we've got three more play Flux Fantasy games this month. Mine is Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Mal's is later this week. I think it starts on Friday, and then Thomas, his is Monday through Wednesday this next week, and we're playing Lunar Showdown and Circuit Break and Predestined. So if you guys want to get in those games, they're you're running out of time, so you want to make sure that you get into those. Um, and yeah, we've got the RPG stuff is always available. And so I'm gonna put all of our stuff, the Linktree stuff, here. But those are kind of the things that like are you'll be running out of time for. If you miss them, you miss them. Obviously, we'll have new slice games every week and new games this next month. But I just wanted to let you guys know since we're about halfway through the month, just sort of the stuff that's going on that we're doing. So I think that's it. I think those are the important things that are sort of
You,
uh,
you, you know, it's
dwindling.
it's so funny because we were joking the other day that Ella is kind of like our cruise director. She's always coming up with that. Even I'm like, oh, this is going on. She's like, okay, and this is going on. I was talking to I think Joe earlier, and I was telling Joe, I was like, I just have to show up. Ella's like, show up here. She like she like comes up with, she's like, show up. I'm like, okay, I'll show up. So it's kind of fun because I
Yeah.
get to experience it like I'm on the cruise with you guys. So anyway, if you're new here, if you happen to be new here, I'm RC Helix. I'm the creator of Flux Destiny and Flux Fantasy, and this is Ella, who is my right hand over here, who also helps me in everything. As I was just telling you, she's like my right hand in everything. She designed the mechanics and the game for Flux Fantasy and did such an amazing job with it. That is all her handiwork. She writes all our games and the one player games too. She manages the RPG community, the slice games, and everything. So she's a busy lady. She's a pretty busy lady.
Very busy, but never too busy for your commissions and the fun things you have to tell me and your questions.
That's right. That's right.
Never too busy for those.
That's right. And be sure she does a great job doing like character packets for. I mentioned this before that in the last stream that if you want your help, you want our help in creating character packets for you to help you get into the Flux Destiny universe. She's done so many, and if you go look at our commission site, you can see some samples of it. And she can also help create your character for Flux Fantasy. So be sure to
And
check it out.
And sorry, real quick.
Mhm.
And if you go and you join our free tier on Patreon, we've got a free tier that we put exclusive stuff on. You can see pretty much all of the commissions that I've written for people. We post them, and there's like a special collection for all of them. And I post them there, like with their art and the stuff that people get. So if you're looking to read more about Flux Destiny, and you're also looking for some samples, they're there as well. And if you haven't joined our free tier, you definitely should, because it gives you updates and fun stuff like this. But also, you don't have to. You can kind of just dip your toe in. If you're interested in Flux Destiny, but you're not ready to jump all in with us, it's a great place for that.
And what's also cool is that with the free tier on Patreon is that once a month you can do one of our exclusive live streams that we have with our Patreon members who are we let the free members in with them. So be sure to check that out too. We have a lot of fun on those, and you can kind of see
We
behind the curtain
do.
all the magic being done behind the curtain, what's really happening, all the puppet mastery, everything that's happening behind the curtain. So,
It's
anyway.
mostly just RC and I quick changing, into different outfits.
um, Below are some links for you before we get started on this special stream today. Patreon.com/Flux Destiny. That's where you can go sign up. There's not only special tiers on there that you can sign up to help support the community and get exclusive access, but you'll also get like game passes. You can also join. You can also get one-on-one art classes with me. I do one-on-one art coaching directly. I have a bunch of my students on here with us, and that's a great place to go. We also have like Patreon exclusive live stream sketch request streams that I do. Nikki, you are so welcome. I'm so glad you liked that sketch. We talked a lot about AJ during that time when I was drawing him. So I'm so glad you liked him. He's a great character. I loved his design. But also we do group classes, so they're a little cheaper, but so you want to learn with a group versus being one-on-one, you can check those out. And then we've got the game passes, so you can basically attend any of our games, including the slice games, for
Mhm.
free. Well, as part of your game pass. So go check that out too. All right. Oh, and last thing, sorry, shop.fluxdestiny.com. That will take you to our Gumroad store where you can download the character creator guide for free, but also you can buy the Flux Fantasy core rulebook there, and a bunch of games and one-player games and all sorts of stuff are in there. So be sure to check that out because that's our full RPG store is on there. Um, all right. Well, so this stream today, the second of our little mini con. I hope you guys have been having a good time with this. And don't forget, I don't want to forget this. Sorry, last thing, last announcement. There's a mixer tonight in the Discord server. If you're not in our Discord server, if you happen to just come here for the first time and you're new, look in the look in the description of this YouTube video. There is a temporary link there that we put up during our events, our Flux Fantasy events, where you can get into the Discord server free because we open it during this time. Usually, you have to buy something to get in there, and we do that to kind of keep it to just like protect our community and make sure we have like real people in there. Right now, it's open today and tomorrow, so now's a good time to jump into the server. Use that link and invite your friends. If you've got friends who you've been trying to get into our community, now's the time to do it. Bring them in and let them be part of this group because we have a really, really, really cool community here. Okay, so today's stream is going to be about, we're going to be covering the geography and like major population centers of Fortuna. Fortuna
Mm.
is the main location of the mainline story in Flux Destiny. It is a it's in Flux Destiny. Every major like country is by um, represented by a fictional represents a real country in our world. Uh,
Hmm.
Flux Destiny takes place on Earth, but in an alternate universe. So countries are different, but the cultures are kind of similar. There's like different ones. There's different things like that, but you can find kind of parallels between the two. and we're going to be releasing the world map soon, which you're going to be able to see all um, the extended cities in there too.
And by
Um,
soon, sometimes we say soon and we mean like in a couple months. We really do mean soon, like very soon.
yeah,
Like very,
absolutely.
very soon.
So I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and
Am I gonna disappear
no,
again?
I fixed it. I
Goodbye.
fixed it
Oh,
this time.
yay!
And now has found my cat is deciding to join the stream. So I'm sorry. We will try.
Sheldon!
Sheldon.
My
So
cat's over here too. He's sleeping though.
no, he knew. It's like the minute I started the stream, I was like, oh, I forgot to put him up, so he would not leave me alone. Okay, so let's go over here to the map, and I'll introduce Fortuna to you. So this is Fortuna, and so Fortuna as a country is pretty big. It's probably about, um, I would say probably about 2/3 the size of the United States. So if you imagine kind of this line right, like this border right here, as being probably about where the Mississippi River is, all the way
Mm.
over to the left is like the West Coast. That's how big Fortuna is. It's a pretty sizable country um, in the world. It has about 165 million people, so it's a pretty size. It's one of the larger population countries on the planet, and it's got several major population centers. I'm going to share some of those with you guys and tell you some of the flavor of those. When I'm done with this, I'm going to go actually and switch over to our mood boards and show you some of the mood boards of the different locations, so you can kind of have a feel of what these different places are like. We're in the middle of creating art for these different locations. So in the meantime, we're using some mood boards on Pinterest just to kind of give you a flavor of what it's like. Um, by the way, this takes place like not only on alternate Earth, but it's in the early 1990s. In fact, it's 1990 at the start of the manga series. So that's just to kind of give you a setting of the feeling of the culture there. Um, Fortuna is divided into, so it's actually the United States of Fortuna is the formal name of the country, and it's made up of these states. So everything in the country is like astronomy themed. So the major states are Andromeda, Orion, Ganymede, Icarus, Izar, and Ad Astra, and these are the six states of Fortuna. And each one of them has like, and you'll see all this in the core rulebook. um in the core rulebook, we have like extensive information about the different cities within it. um I like to kind of take the tour of Fortuna in a counterclockwise fashion. That's, I don't
You're
know
so
why.
you're so funny, like how particular you are. This is, by the way, this is RC's area of specialty. I know quite a bit about the lore, but this is one of the one things that I will always go to RC for. The cities and like the areas, even if I know them really well, like I've written a story in them before, I always go to RC to make sure that it's correct because this is like his area. Like this is where he shines. So just so you guys know.
Thank you. I actually can do something right somewhere. This one, this one, when I did this, and the thing is, the key is like our philosophy on world building is that I always butcher this line, but you can't really, being an author and giving your world authenticity, those things go hand in hand. And
Mm.
having the authority to talk on those things, those three words really go hand in hand because you know, I've spent a lot of time building like every nook and cranny of this universe. And so when you eventually see the world map, and Ella will tell you, I obsessed over it. I obsessed over like, in fact, the map was delayed for several months because I was like not happy with certain like tweaks to the landforms. And so I needed to wait. And finally she's like, you need to finish this. I was like, okay, okay, I'm done. I'm finished. Um, so, anyways, I like to go kind of like counterclockwise when I introduce this. But if you imagine, again, using the United States as kind of a basis for this, Fortuna this is very much like West Coast United States over here in Andromeda. Andromeda is the biggest city in Fortuna. It's also its capital. it's also very much like um, our equivalent to LA in this universe. It is very it's the place where it's got 13 million people, so it's pretty big city. It's a world famous uh, city because it's where Flux Destinies and the big what we call dream workshops, where all the big um, escape artists who create Flux Destinies, where all of them are centered. So it's very much like think of like what Hollywood is to the film industry, Andromeda is to Karma Street. So everyone wants to go there. So all the great escape artists live there. It's gigantic. It's glitzy. It's it's
Mm.
dense. It's got some pretty cool places. Like Ella and I were really excited about like because it's a coastal city. It's very unique in that yeah, you're going to find palm trees everywhere, but it's black sand beaches which are tied to a major rupture in space time that's nearby. So that's what's created the black sand beaches. It's also home to Wolfgang Academy, which is the main. You, if you're new here and you've just heard of that name, you may have heard that name in passing. That's one of the main karmistry schools in the country, and that's actually where one of our games, Predestined, takes place. And it's one of the few games where you can actually play with Marco and Hugo, our main characters, um, and actually do an RPG with them. So that's Andromeda. So this is Central Fortuna here. Is going this way. You go to Canis Major. Canis Major here is like kind of like our Las Vegas, and it's
Hmm.
actually home a to the ink fighting like industry basically, right? It's where all the big ink fighting happens, the big championship leagues, all these things happen here. In fact, we have a story in our Patreon. Is it in the free tier? Champions League?
No,
No? Okay.
no.
The Champions League story, we actually have a whole like light novel written about an ink fighter named Firefly, and it takes place in Canis Major. So it's a pretty big, pretty big. It's a glitzy but dangerous place to be, right? And just to kind of
Yeah,
give you, yeah, go ahead, El.
ink fighting is like, you think about ink fighting a lot with like martial arts. So like in each city there's going to be a couple of gyms and a couple of leagues and stuff like that. But Canis Major is like where they film, like the events like the MMA fights, and stuff like that. Like they really film them, and send them out and stuff. Like those are like the prime leagues, Everything else is like more like local gyms and stuff like that. And some of them are even like underground, and Canis Major has both. So it has sort of the stuff that you're going to see on TV, but then also the like illegal stuff, So it's kind of like it's a bit of both, because it's got kind of that underside, that underbelly, but then also the major stuff. So you're not going to find like huge ink fighting rings like in other cities that are as prominent as Canis Major is.
And it's also like gambling, is it like Las Vegas, a major gambling center in the country. So one of the things when we talk about the vibe of Fortuna and why, you know, when I get asked why did you set it in this setting and in this time, for me the big thing about Carmistry was I didn't want to create some sort of like high fantasy where the magic is kind of like is everywhere in a way that's not like grounded and
Mm.
uh, how to put this. I wanted the magic to really stand out, and so to do that, I had to create what I call what we the term we use here, magic against the mundane. And so magic against the mundane is basically like, okay, imagine our universe, like the one we live in now, where karmistry was possible. And so when you have that backdrop of the real world, like the mundane real world, it makes the magic even more fun and more exciting. So that's why all
Yes.
our cities and everything here are, based in a you know, sort of reality that you would be familiar with.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. There's a common misconception that Flux Destiny is sci-fi. Now, there are some obviously magical and sci-fi elements like karma tech and stuff like that, but the thing that is to remember is that it takes place in the 90s. So if something does not exist in the 90s, it probably does not exist in our reality. So like even something like Karma Tech, which is basically just our technology in the 90s powered by Karma, right? So you think chunky phones and big computers, you're not going to have smooth laptops and things like that. Like it's going to be 90s, but just with the flair of magic, right? So if you think like, oh, do they have spaceships? No. They're not flying across the galaxy. There might be stuff that's a little bit new, like, maybe they have skateboards that are run by Karma or stuff like that, but they probably don't have stuff like hoverboards that are made outside of Karmistry, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where Flux Destinies come into play, which inside of Flux Destiny it can be those magical worlds like Mars and polar ice caps and underwater and things like that. So if you think like, oh, I bet they have you know underground cities or whatever that is, that's not true. This is a very normal world in the 90s that just happens to have is filled with very powerful people. So something to remember.
And actually, the fact that the failed moon landing in this alternate universe and timeline, the moon landing never happened, and so that actually plays a big part of everything. And we'll cover that in a little bit. Actually, I'm going to switch back and forth between the map and kind of the mood boards. By the way, these mood boards, like I said, we're generating our own art. This is art that I've kind of collected that I've seen on Pinterest. Some of it is going to be AI stuff. You guys know how I feel about that. I'm sorry, it's just kind of like Pinterest is filled with it, and so it's hard to tell anymore what's real and what's not. So if there's this is not our work, this is just work that's meant to be mood board stuff. So just a heads up on that, okay? None of this is my work that I'm about to show you. These are just mood boards. In fact, we've prepared these mood boards and we've made them available to you guys who play the RPG. That way, if you need kind of like obviously the mood board to understand where you're playing in, these are accessible. I don't know if they're I don't think they're anymore on our link tree, but we do provide it
I think
during the
it's
game.
on our link tree.
Is it still there? Okay. I'm not
Hold
sure
on.
if it is there. That's great because then you can go
It's
check it
there.
out. It's
Yeah,
there.
it's on
Okay.
our link tree.
Okay. Awesome. So let me share this. Let me switch here. Okay. So when you go to this special when you go to this um, special like board for Flux Destiny, it has all these like boards that we specifically done for different regions of the country. So you'll be able to like, hey, what is Andromeda like? Well, if you're in luck. I've got Andromeda right over here, and so when, see, it's right over here.
You're
We
in
got in,
luck.
you're in luck. I've got one for Andromeda right here, and so when you go here, we've done all this work to kind of collect these mood boards of materials that represent kind of what I think it would look like, in Andromeda. Um, and I spent a lot of time collecting all these. I remember Ella, gosh, and I still haven't filled up enough of these.
Yeah, we are going through. I was about to say it's a good point. These are kind of shifting and changing obviously as we add our own art, but then also like as we write more, locations grow and change a little bit, as we add new like landmarks and things like that. So you'll see over time as they grow and change. But this is just sort of a starter just to give you some vibes. So don't take anything in here like too like literal or serious. Think about vibes, think about ideas.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I don't know if we had Canis Major, same thing. We have a little bit for that to share here. We just started filling these up. Let's see what else. So let's go back to the map. Okay, so we went over that. We went over Canis Major here. Then we start getting into this region, which is the Orion region, and Orion is so if Andromeda in this region is like very much like this area is like Southern California.
Hmm.
Orion is very much like Texas. And so this is actually where Hugo and Marco live. Um, their hometown here is in Big Dipper City. That's where the manga actually starts out, and which is on like the furthest reach of Andromeda, and I think it's probably about 1,200 miles from Andromeda. So it's quite a drive, right? It's very much like driving from Dallas to Los Angeles. Is kind of the distance. Um, Orion City itself, which and each one of these cities kind of like have a like I said a real world equivalent. Orion City is like home to like the or the space program that failed, and that's actually where Marco was born in Orion City. So it's very much like a Houston kind of city. Um, so this whole region here is like kind of like our Texas. Now, Fortuna borders on this region called Pandemonium, and there's this whole history that you're going to learn about Pandemonium in the manga and the story. It is a lawless, anarchic region. Okay, it's not a place that you want to go. The border is heavily guarded. There was a karmistry catastrophe that happened here um, about like I think like 100 years before the events of the story, and so it's not a safe place and it's very dangerous. And there's a lot of ink fighting. Actually, is really popular here because it is you can't. It's very difficult to perform normal kinds of karmistry here because the flow of destiny in this area is really screwed up because of what happened. And there's this large mountain chain that kind of divides Fortuna that helps kind of protect Fortuna from Pandemonium. So there's a lot to learn there, which is and actually one of the reasons why clockbots were created was to protect the border between Fortuna and Pandemonium. So this is a whole thing. I was really excited. I think I don't know if I have. I think I have some Pandemonium stuff. Mood boards. No, I don't have enough of it to share with you. Um, okay. Then as we kind of head this way up north, this area is called the Ad Astra region. Um, it's really unique because this area, like geographically, should be kind of like going to like Maine or New England, but actually it's very tropical. And the reason is that nearby there is a large rupture, which is in the Flux Destiny universe. It's a tear in space time that lets you see the Great Machine, which is the kind of um, underlying control of the universe is through the Great Machine. And so because of that, it's created this kind of microclimate around the area where
Mm.
it's like insane. It's warm, it's humid, it's tropical. There's even like a rainforest here that separates this part of the country from the rest of Fortuna. Um, Ad Astra is very much like New York City, tropical New York City. Think of like New York City meets Miami, you know, even
Meets mafia,
yeah.
meets meets jungle, you
Yes.
know. So it's kind of a it's actually a really cool place. I want to write more about that area.
And then let's see here. So then we've got that. Then we've got the Izar region, which is kind of a depressing place. I'm just going to be quite frank with you. It's it's very much like where a lot of the karma the so karma is actually pulled from the environment and then processed like and refined to be used for energy usage for karma tech. A lot of that happens here in this city called Kid Alpha, and it's a large it's a sizable city. It's probably very much like Seattle in terms of size, but also in terms of like what's it called um, climate, because even though it's so close to Ad Astra, which is completely tropical, you like literally cross the rainforest and suddenly it gets like Seattle like weather. That's how sharp the difference in weather is there. We have let me see if I have any of the eyes are on here. Ah, yeah. Here we go. So it's a little bit like this. You can kind of see this is, it's definitely not the glitz and glamour of, you know of Andromeda, or Ad Astra. It's just very, you know what's it called, like industrial. It's just gloomy. It's a gloomy place,
Hmm.
and very much like the rest of Fortuna. Like Fortuna, like the United States, has very varied topography. So not only is the geography varied, the topography is too. So you can go from, the rainforests in Ad Astra to the deserts near Ganymede City to, the plains, the Great Plains near Big Dipper. Like you can go all over this country and experience all these different um, um, land types. That was important to me because I wanted to create something that, in trying to be as close to, um, to create a U.S. equivalent, I wanted to give it that, but also to give players the ability to create all sorts of like unique backstories by picking different locations that were kind of unique to their character. Like it's very different to be someone from Andromeda versus someone from Big Dipper. That's just like a completely different culturally. It's very different, right? And so I wanted to be able to provide that, in addition to providing like a variety of different places for the story itself, the main manga to happen. I needed to kind of create that. So it took me just creating Fortuna, just the main map, just laying out where the cities were and creating it took me about 6 months just to do that. And then all the other details, that everything, it took probably another 6 months, and to get everything kind of set. So it took about a year to prepare all just this part. Um, Ella, stop me if you have any comments or questions as I kind of go through. Um,
No, you're doing great.
so this area here, this big desert area here near Ganymede City. Ganymede is very much like our Chicago. Um, it's here on the Sea of Stars, which is very much, this is kind of our equivalent of the Great Lakes in Fortuna. Um, this area here, imagine a desert leading into Chicago. That's basically how it would be. It's kind of crazy to think that, but there's a unique reason for this geography and why it's like this. Um, when you get to Ganymede, it's gritty, it's big. It's not the same as Andromeda in terms of like the culture. In
Hmm.
Andromeda, everything is like, think LA, right? Like everyone wants to be a famous escape artist. Everyone is like trying to get their own TV show, like all these things. Ganymede is way more like buttoned down. Like they're just that's where like escape artists, when you're practicing karmistry for like practical things, like engineering or manufacturing or things like that.
Yeah, it's easy to think that when you are creating a character, obviously you want to create the most fun and amazing, character that's going to go on adventures. But sometimes you have to look at the percentage of this world, right? Fortuna, that little bit of Andromeda, which is a big city, but that Andromeda is really the place you're going to find the flashy escape artists, the people trying to get into movies, the escape artists who are using their karmistry to get into gears or to try to get noticed. And then the whole rest of the continent is basically just normal people using their karmistry to like just get by, just to like go to work every day at a factory and do stuff like that. So when you think about it percentage wise, it's stark, like when you're looking at, obviously each city has its own like glamour and escape artists and fun stuff to do, and they all have fun things, but when you're looking at it in perspective, it's actually it's pretty stark. So
It is, yeah. And I mean, when you look at like going back to our kind of mood boards here, you can kind of see, that it feels very different. It's a different place, and it was important to have. That was one of the things that also added some, fun challenge to the creation of this world, was to give every place its unique identity.
mhm.
So that it's not you're not going to have the same experiences with each one, right?
Right,
So
it's not just cool city after cool city after cool city, like this is a functioning country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to think, we thought very carefully, where do they get their water? Where do they get their food? Where do they get their power? Who runs the plants? Where are they refining things? Where do metals come from? Where is their political governments located? It's like, it's functioning. The world, it's a functioning, it's not just like, oh, and then, this is where all of the magic is up north. It's like, no, like, they're doing, like, they're just people and they're working, for the most part.
That's right. And if we were Elle and I don't know if we ever came down to the actual like percentage, but we were thinking about how many people perform karmistry versus how many people are like great escape artists. And the only
Mm,
way that I could kind of put it in perspective is to use like think of famous actors and famous athletes, right? Like
mhm.
there's as a percentage of the whole population of the United States, they're very small, right? And so you have to think great escape artists, which are the ones who are like the most famous, the ones who have that special designation. They are, it would be like being Tom Cruise, right?
Yep.
You have to think of it that way, or a famous football star or something. Um, the regular escape artists who kind of do, because escape artists, many of them do normal things, right?
Yeah.
With their work, construction, engineering, entertainment, all these things, and they're not necessarily famous.
Right.
Um,
And they use their abilities to either help with their jobs, or they're just interested in it. They just, oh, I've got, I like if you were to do martial arts on the side, it's like a fun hobby, right? Like, it's not, you're not going to be in the Olympics, right?
right,
And that would be like what an ink fighter is like. Some of them are in leagues, and some of them are like, oh, I do ink fighting on the weekends, right? So it's not like everybody is always doing ink fighting, or everybody's a clockbot, or everybody's a special agent. It's like, there are groups, maybe they volunteer at the local sheriff's department. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that they're like going on special missions and stuff like that. And that's the reality for most people, is that they're using their karmistry in factories and in hospitals, and, to help other people, and to do construction easier so it doesn't hurt their back, and stuff like that. And then you've got those ones that are like really, really fantastic and great. And that's sort of like where the people who are going to Wolfgang are trying to do. But there are other schools. There's other schools for light karmistry, and trade schools. There's lots of trade schools and stuff like that. So, and in fact, we talk about this in the core rulebook. There's a whole section that talks about like education and training, and not everybody's a great escape artist and does their performing for a living. Some of them can't.
right.
They didn't get into gear, so they're doing other stuff with their karmistry.
That's right. Because the thing is that escape artists and these different types, these different groups, like anytime you're trying to think about their kind of how they are into relation to everyone else, think about our world. Like people who
Mm-hmm.
work in government in our country, like obviously not everyone does that, right? So you got to think of like use the proportions within our world for that. And that should help you do it because most people see escape artists as being like superstars, right? So they're a big deal in the culture of Fortuna. So as we kind of round about this way, we start going into this region here. This is like north. This is northern Fortuna here, and this area is very. It's pretty cold. It's like probably the least. Like this is an area where, um, if I were to, we actually did a density. Didn't I do a density map a while back where like where flux
Yes.
destinies are found? I need to find. I have that map. Um, Actually, if I can pull it up, let me see if I can find this map because this is actually a great map that I did a while back during a live stream where we talked about the uh, the distribution of flux destinies, and the reason why that's important is that if you know where the flux destinies are, you can tell how normal parts of Fortuna are versus like the extraordinary parts that are uh like Andromeda is obviously the most like extreme version of that. As you get into other areas like Big Dipper, you're not going to find lots of flux destinies there, right? It's very like that's it's a very like normal place to be. Um,
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find this real quick. It was a great drawing, and I saved it because um, it was so. I think I did it by accident. I think we were talking about.
We were doing a live like this, and then you just started doing it, and we were all just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, and I was like, I thought I saved it. I could have sworn I saved it. Oh, I did save it. Uh, Hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. This is actually a really
It
cool
goes,
map.
yeah, it goes exactly with what we were saying. That like the more entertainment and stuff, like there are cool stuff. There's probably a Flux Destiny in every city, but like the density, how big they are, you're not going to find like neighborhoods of Flux Destinies, in the fields of Orion. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna find like a whole
Right.
neighborhood of a Flux Destiny. It's gonna be like, okay, there's one, that somebody put up next to that gas station, that like kind of brings in customers, or whatever. But then Andromeda is like you turn the corner and it's everywhere. You walk the street and you go through a Flux Destiny, right? So it just sort of depends on where you're at, and that also is like Andromeda is filled with Karmistry and Flux Destinies and escape artists, and you go somewhere like uh Ursa Major, and it's pretty like wah wah. There's not going to be a lot of stuff there because like what kind of great escape artist is going to go there? That they just don't have it. It's sort of the same thing. Like you're not going to walk around to Oklahoma and find big movie stars. It's like
Right.
they're there. Why would they be there? There's no movies. There's no
Right.
movie studios
That's a
there.
great way to look at it. I
And
think
no
that's
shame to Oklahoma. It's just not where they're. That's not
it's
what
not
they're
where it
doing.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oklahoma's, busy pumping oil for us and
Right. Yeah. They're
other
doing.
stuff, right?
They're
Yeah,
doing other
doing other
stuff.
things. But that's how kind of things are set up. Like, okay, so I found the map. You can see it on the screen. The blue areas kind of represent the distribution of like Flux Destinies in Fortuna, and you can see where they're highly concentrated in these areas. And these areas mean that these are areas that are like, you know, like if you go anywhere else, it's going to be rare to see a Flux Destiny, and it's going to be more like normal America, right? But if you go to these areas that are highly dense in Flux Destinies, these are the areas that are drawing the most amount of power, karmic
Hmm.
power in this country, because they need all that power to run the Flux Destinies. But also, they are also the major population centers that use them, because even whole neighborhoods are being created with it. This needs to be updated just a little bit because some of the other larger cities like Big Dipper do have neighborhoods that are starting to be built out of Flux Destinies now,
You've
but
got a
they're
little
not.
dot there. There's a little
There's a little
tiny.
dot. That's true. There's a little
Yeah.
dot there. So I'm so glad. I actually need to make this is the version I made from the live stream. I actually need to remake this like formally so that
Hmm.
we can have because it's a really fun map. Like I really loved doing this one um, because of that.
I would
Um,
say that this is still very accurate to,
yeah, it just
even though it was a couple of months ago.
it just needs a little updating and so that it's not just me scribbling on it too to look nice. But I think you should also look at it and say, okay, well, um, the whole country is not one giant Flux Destiny. That's kind of
Right.
what we're trying to
We're
demonstrate
trying
here.
to say that this is realistic and we put thought into it, okay?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So anyway, going back here, this region here with Icarus City, this area, there's this giant mountain range here, that is, um, I mean, these are tall mountains. I'm talking like really tall mountains in this region. Um, when I brought up the kind of distribution of Flux Destinies here, you'll notice that this area is really sparse. There's not a lot here, and that it's kind of naturally beautiful. It's kind of like the Pacific Northwest. And so up here,
Hmm.
this area is very pretty. It's very naturally beautiful. You're not going to find a lot of Flux Destinies in this region. A unique city here, Ulux, is kind of like our San Francisco, but there was a rupture that opened up here um, at the base of this peninsula that has really, cut off the city from the rest of the country and created all sorts of weird effects in the city. And
Yep.
It's a
I mean,
very
it's really close. It's very close to the city.
It is, and it's created all sorts of problems for the city. It's described in the core rulebook as the city that slipped through. It kind of feels like a postcard from another time,
Hmm.
faded at the edges, but still breathtaking if you know where to look. I'm reading from the core rulebook. It was once one of Fortuna's most celebrated destinations, that was perched on a peninsula that juts into the shimmering Procyon Ocean. The city was once known for its oceanfront carmistry showcases, ornate streetcars, and skyline carved into the cliffs. It had it all: art, elegance, escape, until the Polaris rupture appeared. And so it has all sorts of like remnant effects of this karmic catastrophe that happened there that affect the city. You can still go there, people still live there, but it's really choked its growth because of that.
Hmm.
So each of these cities kind of have been affected by karmistry in one way or another. So those are like the big things. What's really cool about this map, if you go to fluxdestiny.com, you can actually find this map, and you can actually also find this map about the states, and you can check out, like, you can see all the highways are figured out. We figured out where the major highways are, where airports are, everything. So when you're telling your story, and when you're creating your own story in Flux Fantasy, you can make it pretty realistic with that. What else, Ella? What am I missing here?
I think you pretty much nailed it. Um, there's obviously, we don't know everything about, everything, because obviously there's like tons of people and groups. But we've got, as we build out the world, we will add more factions and groups. Some of that is already in the core rulebook. It tells you like what kind of groups are in each city, and things like that. But we will continue to expand it. So the best thing to do, Oscar, the best thing to do if you're like curious is, and there's not a lot about that location, you can kind of put in like a little placeholder, be like, oh, my character is part of a gang that is there, and then later once it comes out, you can kind of like fill in the details, as stuff goes on. That's a good thing to think of as you're going forward is, if you ask me, or you're looking at it and you're like, oh, there's not a lot of information on Big Dipper or whatever. The best thing to do is put a little placeholder there, and then come back to it once we get some more details there.
It's so
Sorry,
it's
I
so
was under
funny.
a cat
That
attack,
is,
and I'm trying to talk.
this happens every time to me and her. We'll be on this, and our cats will like know. I think they know that we're busy, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
like the lack of attention,
Mm-mm.
and so like they just like will come and bomb us in the middle of like something important like this. No other the
Yeah.
rest of the time. Actually, my cat does this thing where he has to sit in my lap. He's not very touchy feely, except for a certain time of the day, and he'll let me hold him for about 5 minutes, but it's on his terms. And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so we are definitely a cat studio. We love
You're
cats.
a cat. If you had any doubt that RC and I were cat folk,
We are
uh,
cat folk, absolutely cat folk. I cannot wait to share the world map with you. Like I said, it's in production now. Uh, like Ella said, it's going to be, when we said soon, it is going to be very soon.
yeah.
We'll have a special live stream to unveil it, so you can see the whole map. I'll have information about the other countries, and so when you're creating your characters from other countries, I've tried my best to kind of capture as many like major cultures as possible, and in
Mm-hmm.
addition to creating our own new ones. But you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of like, there's a whole like spectrum of countries and cultures you can choose from to make your characters from. um the mainline story of Flux Destiny manga takes place primarily in Fortuna and Pandemonium and elsewhere. I don't want to list all the places right now. but it does kind of
But around Fortuna,
around
basically.
Fortuna, yeah. But there are other stories and things we're going to tell that take place in other countries. There's
Hmm.
other characters that come from other countries, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to when I did this. I didn't want to create it later. That's why so much time went into creating all the foundation for Flux Destiny. Was
Hmm.
that it's not like, oh, we only know this part of the map and later I got to figure everything else out. No, I was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to figure out the whole planet, right?
Yeah, you're gonna find characters. There's NPCs on our Patreon in the foreign exchange student pack that come from other countries. Some of your OCs come from other countries. If you've been asking about it, characters from the manga will be from other countries and from other cultures, and it's an important part of who they are. And we didn't want to just like if you're going to have magic against the mundane, you have to have you have to have other conflicts, right? The conflict can't just be magic. Like there's conflicts between countries and culture clashes and all kinds of stuff, real world situations and conflicts that are happening. But at the same time, it's in this alternate world where there's magic involved now. So what does that mean? And so we really wanted it to be very realistic. I feel like I'm butchering this, but
No,
RC, you know what I'm talking about.
no, you no, you said it. No, no, I don't think I don't think you've been butchering it all. I think it's absolutely right. And in that vein, like Fortuna has its relationships with other countries, right?
Hmm.
That mirror, like, Fortuna is a world power, is a world karmic power. So
Yeah.
it obviously sways a lot of world politics, just like the United States does for good and bad in our real world. It's the same thing for Fortuna. Um, when you see the world map, you'll see that some countries kind of like generally align with our world, and sometimes they've been moved. Like here, the Wufang Dynasty, which is north of Fortuna, is kind of our equivalent to China, and it's actually shares a border with Fortuna. So some countries have been kind of moved around in this world, and so they're not like Fortuna is kind of like U.S. and Canada, to be more
Hmm.
precise. It's kind of representative of that. So yeah, it's important to have those dynamics, because one of the cool dynamics, for example, that we talk about, and if you get the core rule book and you read like the karmistry laws, one of them, there is a rule about the export of gold. And now that may sound like, okay, what? Well, gold is the primary material used to create toruses, which are used for by escape artists to perform karmistry. Fortuna has a huge, rich seam of gold in the country, and it's allowed them to create lots of toruses for all these escape artists. But not only that, for also their karma tech. Karma tech requires many like micro toruses that are made with gold, and so exporting gold to other countries is kind of a national security thing, right? It's like here we have certain rules about exporting like computer chips and processors to other countries because we don't want them to use it, against us, right? The same with Fortuna. It's got a very strict rules about the export of gold, as one example. And then it's got allies and enemies across the globe, right? There's
Hmm.
just it just depends, and so the interplay of the dynamics of the countries between are actually a really important factor in how the other when you're creating your characters, for example, you bring that in, right? You bring that dynamic in. If you're from a country that is not friendly with Fortuna, obviously you're going to have like cultural clashes, right, between them. And so that adds a level of richness to your character creation in Flux Fantasy, because then you're going to have these things like, oh, okay, Fortuna and Frenzy don't get along, right? So how does that affect your like historically they don't. It's like the United States and Russia, and more specifically because of this time period, the USSR. And so how those two countries had their own tensions together will spill over into your character creation and how they behave. um let's see. I see a. Was there a question here, or you already answered it?
Yeah, Moose asks, it's not a map question, but asks, with gold being so heavily regulated, does that imply that gold jewelry isn't as common as people would default to silver more? And I said, people still want gold because it's trendy. And I said, in fact, it's probably more common to have gold jewelry than it is silver.
Yeah, it's really the amount of gold, right? Like it's kind of like a Taurus is, you know, it's it's like it's not that there is no gold exporting, it's just that it's restricted to certain countries, right? Like Fortuna is not going to
Hmm.
export gold to a country that it's um, enemies with, um, for obvious reasons, right? You know, the military, Fortuna's military is pretty diverse in terms of like the different kinds of powers and technology that it has. Fortuna,
Hmm.
this universe, created the atomic bomb, right? Nuclear bombs exist in this world, but they're powered by chemistry, right? So Fortuna is also a nuclear power, right? It's got you know, a standard, you know, Air Force, you know, uh, you know, Army and Navy, but it also is manned with escape artists, right, who have chemistry powers. It's got you know, battalions of ink fighters that are in the military of Fortuna. So it's got a pretty, and it's got a huge battalions of clockbots, right? So it's a very, you know, it's not a place that you could go and just take over very easily, right? Because it's like the United States in that sense. Um, but other countries are of various military power depending on, you know, their economy and their history and what have you. Obviously, a country like Wufang is also a very powerful in terms of its military. So they're, you
Yeah.
know, it's you have these two, you know, major powers at the border of each other, and they kind of have their own frosty relations.
Well, and I want to say too, we talk a lot about, we're talking kind of, we're veering into like politics and stuff like that. Flux Destiny is not like a politically heavy
Right.
narrative,
Yeah.
but I want to say it's important when you're creating a realistic world to think of those things. You know what I mean? You're going to read as we go, and you start to, we unveil things to you, you will understand the importance of it, because it is important, although it might not be at the forefront. It creates this, like having a background, right? Versus like a character, you need both. You know, you need the pretty background and the character, and so this is all sort of stuff that you know, is important to, like little things that change a character's like trajectory in the world, you know. And so this is not, we're not like, this is not the main focus of Flux Destiny, but it's good to
Right.
know about, you know, because it will help you understand your characters better and understand the manga better as well.
I'm so glad you said that because that's really important. As just to show you the depth of the world building that's being done. There's so much that's created and thought of, but doesn't appear in the story, and but knowing it's there helps you know how well thought out the world is. You know,
Hmm.
knowing that all this has been thought out is that when you read the story, you know that everything is kind of purposeful. So we've thought through all these things, you know, down to where the highways are, right? So it's not created as you go, you know, as the story goes, but rather it's there and the characters. I feel in a way as a creator that makes it even more fertile ground for the characters as they go, because the as a creator I've already done all the hard work of setting everything up like the universe, and I don't have to worry about that. I can worry on the story and actually think ahead, you know, about where the character where the characters are going to go
Yeah.
and how that's going to affect the story. So we have a question here from Spot. I see. um, is money and fortuna gold based like the real, or is gold more chemistry centric and not used for something as consumptive as money? So the currency in Fortuna is called the merit, and it's again just for the ease of people to understand the world. Think of the U.S. dollar. So one merit equals basically one U.S. dollar. Um, the gold is certainly used like as a reserve in this world, but it's not the you got to think of us very similar to the U.S. economy, right? Where it's, they've got a stock market, they've got gold reserves, they've got all sorts of financial instruments, but people don't transact in gold like normally, right? Like you're not going to go to the
Yep.
store and buy a pizza with gold. You're going to buy it with merits.
Yep.
Which is, by the way, little side note, merits that's another karma theme. Karma and there's the um, theory of merit in karma, in the real world study of karma. That's why I chose the name merit for the currency, was that it just ties to the karmistry theme. Um, Merit is paper money,
Hmm.
by the way. So I see Carl's asking about it. It's paper money. I mean, and obviously there's coins and stuff like that. Again, everything having to do with the like, magic against the mundane. It's like, just imagine a 1990s US with karmistry available. That should tell you a lot with it. Um, did I answer this other question here? Was there another one? Did I
Oh,
miss?
I answered it in the chat. Um,
Oh, wouldn't Fortuna be the world premiere? It is. But yeah, Fortuna is the world premier superpower. It was the creation, and when you study the history of Fortuna, this is where the form of karmistry, which is called escapist karmistry, was really nurtured and exploded in the 1700s in Fortuna when it was founded. So Fortuna was the source of, like, kind of the birthplace of escape artists, um,
hmm
that took karmistry, which was created in this country that's now no longer exists, called Mu. Mu had sunk into the ocean. It was a continent that where karmistry was born. Um, there's a whole history between these two countries. Fortuna basically took karmistry and commercialized it, and so it benefited greatly from that, from commercializing karmistry, and obviously became a very rich country for that reason. So that's kind of the study. Now, there's other countries that have also done very well for themselves, but Fortuna is is definitely and it throws its weight around. It does throw its weight around, and in fact, a lot of the laws and things like the National Karmistry Authority, there's a global karmistry authority, right? That Fortuna is on the seat of. But just like the United Nations, where the U.S. throws its power around, it's the same thing. So, if you're in other countries, everyone really wants to come to Andromeda, for example, to come learn to be an escape artist and to go work for one of the big, dream workshops. So it's, it's a pretty, if you want to be, you can't be a great escape artist, in my opinion, without having had made one trip to Fortuna. You have to, like, go to Andromeda once,
hmm
right? It would be very difficult to do that. So, um, any other last questions we have here? Let's see. Did I answer everything? Where is the highest
There's
point?
a
Lowest point? Oh, what's that?
yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Highest point and lowest point. The highest point in Fortuna is here in Mount Destiny. Mount Destiny is, like I said, these are, I actually have I don't have it memorized, but I have the in terms of like how many feet. I think it was something like 13,000 feet or something. It's a very tall mountain.
Hmm
Mount Destiny is the tallest point in Fortuna. The lowest point is probably going to be somewhere here, in in the desert area here, where the Caron Desert region. So it's probably going to be around here. Is where the lowest. These areas here on the coast are very. You have to think of, like, again, think Southern California for this region, and how the coast looks there. Then Northern California and Oregon um, and Washington State, kind of this kind of feeling here. What else? Do merits have the same color scheme? Merits have a different color. They're like purple. They actually look more like euros. They do.
hmm
They have some concept art that I hadn't posted. I need to work on it a little more, but they look more like euros, and they have like one of those. metallic bands on them, and they're mainly purple and yellow, purple and
Hmm.
gold, which is the colors of Fortuna. Uh, any info on IO City? Any on any? Oh, I can share that with you. I think we've got. If you go into the mood board, there is more stuff about IO City in there. It's actually another. It's one of the major spaceports where it's kind of like Cape Canaveral is for the United States, where it was one of two major launch areas for the country's space program was in Io City here, and the other being Orion City. Where did it go? Up here. So it has, um, and we'll be sharing more information about that soon too. Well, anything else, Ella? I think we covered kind of everything. At least some
Yeah.
big, not everything, but like the big stuff. I appreciate the questions. Those are some really great questions that you guys had in the chat, and we'll continue
Yeah.
as we release like more more artwork
Hmm.
as we
And
release it.
here's
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll say this. So sometimes I get a lot of questions about certain areas, and I'll actually turn them to certain things that we've already written. I know that Flux Destiny is constantly coming out with a lot of stuff, but actually, the more, if we ever release something, that has more information in it, we tend to be kind of clear, like, Predestined. If you want to know about Wolfgang, you should read the game Predestined. Even if you're not going to play it, or even if you're not going to join in and you want to know more about Wolfgang and that kind of stuff, it's a good thing to read. And so, like our short stories and things that come out, like our short story Champions League, will talks a lot about Canis Major. So the more that you guys read and the more that you get into the world and into this stuff, it will tell you more. Like the core rulebook is a great place to start, and we've got our wiki and stuff like that. So there's a lot there, and you can also obviously DM me questions. We're gonna get the lore channel up and running soon as well. But the more that you read and the more stuff that we release, we always try to have new information in there. Whether it's a commission or art or games. So like our game Flux Destiny Ultimate, which is going to come out in the summer, is going to have a ton of information about some of these locations. And so you're going to kind of, through the story, you're going to get more information. So I just wanted to say that before we close out.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's why we went through all this work, and you'll see it through all the materials. So grab a core rule book if you haven't already. If you want to even just test it out, you can grab the character creator guide so you can get a flavor of the. That's free. You can download that for free. Join our Patreon. You can join the free tier and get a sampling of what's going on. And we actually have like lots, like she said, lots of great material. And you don't want to miss these lore live streams that we do, which are a lot of fun. There's just so much going on. There's just so much going on that it's kind of hard for me to sit here and read a menu to you on it. But be sure to visit these links, and then also visit links.fluxdestiny.com, which is our like the hub for everything.
Hmm.
And and yeah, and I think, and oh, last thing, if you're just joining us, or if you're new and you're not in our server is open for today and tomorrow for our mini con. So be sure to go to check the description of the YouTube channel and come join us on the server. We've got all these cool people here who are asking us questions, and you can tell these guys are dedicated fans who are in the community, and we're always bringing in new folks with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour of Fortuna. I know it got kind of geeky and wonky with me like getting into every
Well, it was
detail about
good.
it, but I hope my passion for it comes through, so you can see how much care went into all this. So
So much.
yeah,
In 1 hour, don't forget 1 hour. If you are not in our Discord, in basically, less than an hour now, our GMs are sort of hosting, our GMs and lore leaders are hosting a little mixer. So go in there, meet new people, join your friends, have fun, watch these videos, go back and watch old. If you have questions, go back and look through our YouTube. Sometimes we've answered questions. We've had whole live streams about it. And it'll help you get up to date on certain things if you're curious and just want more of RC and Ella. You know, we've got lives where you can learn everything that you want to learn. So I hope that you guys love this, and we will see you guys tomorrow for more of the mini con.
Yep, tomorrow. And what time is the first event tomorrow? 11
11
Central.
Central. Yeah.
Yeah. So see you guys 11 Central. Have a great, hope you got, go attend the mixer. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.